love the idea of what Larry Nance could bring
Hells yes.
to the
L2B.
second unit, or just to the Blazers. I love but I also was super excited about the concept of Mario Hezonja. So I'm trying to temper my expectations. But I feel like they have made some moves that will solidify the bench, because it used to be like when the bench came on, we just all sort of held our breath and we're like, if everybody's hitting and scoring, then it's not going to be a problem tonight. But if people's shots are not falling, then it's going to be real rough night every time Damian or CJ sits down.
If it makes you feel any better, we have actual evidence, unlike Mario Hezonja, that Larry Nance Jr. is good when he's healthy. So I feel like you can get more excited about that. I thought that was we had actually talked about Larry Nance Jr. when he came on the podcast last time when we were talking about Blazers trade candidates. I think it's a great fit, bordering on perfect, and all the things that you just said, I would just agree with. And what I think he brings is some more lineup optionality for them if they want to go a little bit different when Nurk isn't on the floor, but you still want to play Dame and CJ together. So if I'm where I'm at, and if he's healthy, I think he ends up being like a really big addition for the Blazers. Where no, this wasn't the offseason where they got a star, but Larry Nance Jr. is really good. And based off how they defended with Jusuf Nurkic on the court for much of last season, now if we're able to bridge the minutes without Nurkic a little bit better with one of the primary front court players, I do think there is nowhere to go but up basically for this defense relative to last season. But I think Larry Nance Jr. makes way more of an impact than people are talking about, just because it wasn't one of the moves that was like, kaboom, or like that. It wasn't the star that everyone thought the Blazers needed to acquire.
Yeah. And two things about Larry Nance, one on offense and one on defense. One of the things that and this is why I kind of likened him to the Mario Hezonja experience, is because, we were presented with the potential for Mario to be a facilitator, because that's, he likes to, somebody said along the way that he was going to, he'd like to have the ball in his hands in order, to facilitate and create, that he could do that sometimes for others. And, but one of the things I really like about Larry Nance and why I'm excited about him on offense is he's talked a lot about how he loves soccer and he's a soccer player. And to me, one of the things that I enjoy watching about guys who are really, really into soccer is basketball is about executing a series of plays in an order that makes sense, and being able to call the plays and figure out what you want to do during the middle of the game. And soccer, because you don't have timeouts, you just have to go. You're creating as you go along. And from like the highlights that I've watched of Larry Nance, he seems like the kind of guy who's just really great at like creating as he goes along. He can also execute plays, but he has sort of that like center midfielder like vibe to him, where he's like can pull out things that you weren't expecting, because he's looking at the whole court and the totality of the game, in addition to like knowing what the plays are and everything. So I'm excited about his potential as a facilitator, because last year, and it's not like he's has outrageous like assist numbers, but you watch him and he has a variety of different types of pass to give other people the opportunity to score. And last season, with Melo and Cantor as the two forwards on the bench unit, that's when I started to understand the difference between passing because you don't have a shot and actually facilitating. And I think that there might be more they want Anthony Simons to take more of a role in facilitating that offense. But I think having other guys who also do the same thing is going to be better for everybody on the bench. So that's like offensively. And then just defensively, in combination with Cody Zeller, if the bench can just not just let points be scored on them for their shifts, and it just seems like so much more likely that we have center big guys who can do that off the bench right now.
Yeah, offense, he would excite me there too, but for what they do on defense, like he gives you just protection on the perimeter, and also he's not the best rim protector, but if they wanted to run a lineup with him as a bigger guy, he's just so good at anticipating when he's even sort of pulled outside the paint on defense. And I think if there are lineups with him and Covington together, and maybe it's not, when Dame sits or it's bench heavy units, maybe they're not the best offensive team, which would make sense if you don't have Dame in the lineup. But it feels like now they're just more built. Like they could have some really stingy bench heavy defensive units. It looks